The fisherman and his wife. The morning mist clung to the water like a soft gray blanket as Samuel cast his fishing line into the calm sea. He had been coming to this same rocky outcrop for 20 years, ever since he married Martha and they settled in the small cottage overlooking the harbor. The weathered wooden pier creaked gently beneath his feet, a familiar sound that brought him peace. Samuel was a patient man. He understood the rhythm of the tides, the language of the clouds, and the quiet wisdom that came from hours spent waiting by the water. His hands, rough from years of handling nets and lines, moved with practiced ease as he baited his hook and sent it dancing beneath the surface. Back in their cottage, Martha was tending to her small garden. She had always been the dreamer of the two, her mind filled with wishes for a grander life, while Samuel found contentment in their simple existence. Martha often gazed across the water toward the distant mountains, wondering what lay beyond their quiet village. The cottage was humble but warm. Sunlight streamed through the small windows, illuminating the worn wooden table where they shared their meals and the simple stone hearth where Martha cooked their daily bread. Yet lately, Martha found herself sighing more often, her eyes lingering on the faded curtains and the single room that held all their worldly possessions. On this particular morning, something extraordinary happened. Samuel felt an unusual tug on his line, stronger than any fish he had ever caught. The water around his hook began to shimmer with an otherworldly light, and slowly, a magnificent fish emerged from the depths. Its scales gleamed like polished gold, and its eyes held an ancient wisdom that made Samuel's breath catch in his throat. "Please," the fish spoke, its voice like the whisper of waves against sand, "release me back to the sea. I am not an ordinary fish, but a prince under an enchantment. Spare my life, and I will grant you whatever your heart desires." Samuel stared in wonder. The fish's golden scales caught the morning light, creating patterns that danced like liquid sunshine. He had never seen anything so beautiful, so otherworldly. Without hesitation, he gently removed the hook and lowered the magical creature back into the water. "I need nothing," Samuel said softly. "Go in peace." The fish's grateful eyes met his for a moment before it disappeared beneath the waves, leaving only ripples on the surface and a lingering sense of magic in the air. When Samuel returned home empty-handed but with his heart full of wonder, he found Martha sweeping their small doorstep. Her movements were sharp with frustration, and her lips were pressed into a thin line of discontent. "No fish again?" she asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Samuel told her about the magical fish, describing every detail of the encounter. He spoke of the creature's golden scales, its wise eyes, and the generous offer it had made. Martha listened with growing excitement, her sweeping forgotten. "And you asked for nothing?" Martha's voice rose with disbelief. "Samuel, we could have had anything. Look at this place." She gestured around their modest home. One room, a leaking roof, and barely enough space to turn around. "We could have asked for a proper house with separate rooms and a garden that doesn't flood with every storm." Samuel watched his wife's face transform as possibilities bloomed in her mind. He saw the spark of hope there, mixed with something that made him uneasy. But Martha's happiness had always been his greatest wish, and if the magical fish could bring her joy, perhaps he should have asked for more. "Go back," Martha urged, taking his weathered hands in hers. "Call to the fish and ask for a better home. Surely that's not too much to request." Reluctantly, Samuel returned to the pier. The sea, which had been calm that morning, now moved with gentle swells. He called out to the magical fish, his voice carrying across the water. The golden creature appeared almost immediately, its scales less brilliant than before but still beautiful. "What do you wish?" the fish asked, though something in its ancient eyes suggested it already knew. "My wife desires a better home," Samuel said simply. "It is done," the fish replied before vanishing beneath the waves. When Samuel returned, he found Martha standing before a beautiful two-story house with a red-tiled roof and windows that sparkled in the afternoon sun. A well-tended garden surrounded the home, filled with vegetables and flowers that perfumed the air. Martha's face glowed with delight as she showed him room after room, each furnished with comfortable chairs and warm blankets. For several weeks they lived happily in their new home. Samuel continued his daily fishing, now from a better boat that had appeared alongside the house. Martha tended her expanded garden and arranged their beautiful rooms, but as the novelty wore off, Samuel noticed his wife's eyes beginning to wander again, this time toward the manor house visible on the hill above their village. "Other fishermen's wives have servants," Martha mentioned one evening as she prepared their dinner, "and proper carriages. We have a nice house, but we're still common folk, aren't we?" Samuel felt a chill that had nothing to do with the evening breeze. He recognized the familiar longing in Martha's voice, the same restless desire that had led to their current good fortune. But he also sensed that each wish carried a weight he didn't fully understand. The pattern continued. Samuel would reluctantly return to the pier, call to the magical fish, and make another request. Martha became a wealthy merchant's wife, then a noblewoman, then a duchess. With each transformation, their circumstances grew grander. But Samuel noticed that the fish's golden scales grew dimmer and Martha's satisfaction grew shorter-lived. The sea, too, began to change. What had once been calm and welcoming now churned with increasingly violent storms. The sky darkened with each visit, and the fish's ancient eyes reflected a deep sadness that made Samuel's heart ache. When Martha demanded to become a queen, Samuel found himself walking toward the pier through a fierce gale. Lightning split the sky, and the waves crashed against the rocks with tremendous force. The magical fish appeared through the chaos, its once golden scales now pale and worn. "I cannot grant this wish," the fish said, its voice barely audible. "Above the storm, your wife's heart has grown cold with wanting. True happiness cannot be seized, must be given freely, like the mercy you showed me that first morning." As the fish spoke these words, Samuel felt a profound understanding wash over him. He thought of that peaceful morning when he had released the magical creature without asking for anything in return. He remembered the quiet joy he had found in his simple life, the contentment that had filled his heart during those 20 years in their humble cottage. When Samuel returned home, he found Martha standing in their original cottage, exactly as it had been that first morning, but something was different. Martha's face, which had grown pinched with constant wanting, now showed traces of the woman he had married. The storms had passed and gentle sunlight streamed through their small window once again. "I dreamed we had everything," Martha said softly, reaching for Samuel's hand. "But I woke up here, and for the first time in months, I felt peaceful." Samuel smiled and pulled his wife close. Outside their window, the sea stretched calm and blue toward the horizon, holding its secrets once again. They had learned that true richness lay not in what they could take, but in what they chose to cherish. That evening they sat together in their small cottage, sharing a simple meal and watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and rose. And Samuel knew that this quiet moment with the woman he loved was worth more than all the kingdoms in the world.